successful accounting transactions at SamTrans. The transit district manages Caltrain and SamTrans buses, but now community groups are calling for a closer look at SamTrans financial records. Investigative reporter Vicki Wynn was at the headquarters this evening with this report.
Hands off SamTrans workers. Stop bullying workers who are doing their job.
A small group of demonstrators from the group Stop Workplace Bullying rallied in support of district whistleblowers tonight.
We want to get institutions to recognize that they have problems with wrongdoing and to develop pathways for whistleblowers to report it safely so that problems can be fixed.
San Carlos Vice Mayor Matt Grocott says the concerns raised by SamTrans insiders warrant an independent investigation into the district's finances.
I would like to see it investigated, seriously taken up by the district attorney's office.
Well, all I have to say is that SamTrans is the same as any other large organization. They have wrongdoing that occurs there, so they need to acknowledge that's part of their job to deal with wrongdoing, and they need to develop a pathway for whistleblowers to safely report the wrongdoing without fearing termination or layoff, etc. So we're hoping that SamTrans will stop claiming that they're perfect and start looking at the problems and giving whistleblowers a safe way to report to administration.
Public employees who are trying to do their job, professional public employees, are finding out that when they find malfeasance and when they find mismanagement and they report it, they become the subjects of retaliation. And what we're saying here is public employees should not be bullied. There's an epidemic of bullying in the workplace at SamTrans and other agencies. When public workers come forward with problems, with malfeasance and corruption, they themselves become targets for bullying. And this is completely unacceptable, and we're going to challenge Congresswoman Anna Escher. We're going to challenge Wagstaff, the district attorney here, about why they are not investigating and prosecuting workplace bullying. The public officials apparently in San Mateo believe that they're above the law. They believe that they don't have to investigate allegations of malfeasance and corruption, that it's okay in San Mateo. The SamTrans district, which has many public officials from other agencies in San Mateo, apparently feel that there's no responsibility to have accountability. Well, I think we've got a problem in this SamTrans agency. I think we have a problem in San Mateo because if there's no accountability, corruption becomes rife. And that is exactly what has been happening. Millions of dollars, federal money, state money, and local money has been spent in this district. And people who have questioned where that money is going, when it's going to cronies who don't have business licenses, when it's used for property transfers, improper property transfers, that's illegal practices. Now, one of the things that's happening in transportation in California, in the Bay Area, including at BART, is there's a lot of money going around in transportation. And why is that? Because when you open a transit station, the property values go up. And what does that mean? When the property values go up, people who own property get a lot of money, and the developers get a lot of money. So we're talking about potential conflicts of interest when people who have relationships with these boards of directors of SamTrans, they are actually getting money, their friends are getting money from the development with the use of public funds. We think that's unfair. We think that transit should be for transit, not for property development. The purpose of transit and public transit agencies is to develop public transit, not for the profiteering of people who want to make money developing property. And we're going to have some stories here about how this transit agency has actually manipulated property transit actions in San Carlos, not to benefit the community, not to benefit transit, but to benefit developers. And that is part of the problem here that we face in this agency. Now, this coming week in the United States is Workplace Free Bullying Week. And this is a time when, around the country, we talk about the issue of bullying in the workplace. And why is this a national issue? It's a national issue because workers in this country are being bullied on the job. They're bullied on the job not for bad things that they do. They're being bullied on the job because of many cases of whistleblowing. And we have one of the whistleblowers here from San Francisco who's a doctor who was bullied at Laguna Honda Hospital in San Francisco because he reported malfeasance, financial malfeasance. Unfortunately, there's a systemic problem here where people, public employees who report financial malfeasance themselves become retaliated and bullied. So what we're going to say here is that we are going to fight the bullying and the retaliation against public employees who report malfeasance. We're calling on the district attorney of San Mateo, Wagstaff, to investigate. He says he doesn't have the money to investigate allegations of public fraud. Since when do the district attorney of San Mateo doesn't have the money? There are multimillionaires and billionaires in San Mateo, and they don't have the money to investigate fraud? Something is wrong with this picture. Why does the district attorney have no money to investigate allegations of fraud, public fraud, by the SamTrans district? This is wrong, and we think it has to do with conflicts of interest that the district attorney has with other politicians. That's exactly why there's no investigation. That's exactly why there's no accountability and transparency. And this is a systemic problem. This is why there's complete silence. We're also asking Congresswoman Anna Eshoo to initiate an investigation and to prevent any more money going, federal money going for property development while this investigation takes place. So we're going to defend the workers here at SamTrans who are fighting bullying, who are fighting workplace bullying. We're going to say that there has to be an investigation, and we're saying that these employees here, and many of them are afraid to talk, many of them are afraid to speak out because they're afraid of being fired. If these speak out and talk, they'll be fired. Now, they say in the United States we have democracy here. We have free speech. If public employees are afraid to speak out, what kind of democracy is this in the workplace? If people are afraid to speak out when they see malfeasance, what kind of democracy is this? This is a systemic problem in our country, and it's a problem certainly at San Mateo County Transit District, which is a big agency and receives tens of millions of dollars. So we're going to take this up, and our first speaker is going to talk a little bit about the community.
My name is Ben Fuller. I'm the president of the Greater East San Carlos Neighborhood Association, and I'm here to talk about the relationship that we have with SamTrans as a neighborhood. As everyone knows, SamTrans is located here in San Carlos, and they've got a plan to build a large wall of 8 55-foot buildings across the street from my neighborhood. And so for the last 6 years, we've been talking to SamTrans, and we've been working with them about, can they lower those buildings? Can they lower the impact of these buildings on our neighborhood? And we've had many, many conversations with them, and what's been apparent every time we have a conversation with them is that it's impossible to get them to listen to what we're saying. They're completely bent on putting up these buildings in our neighborhood, and they're very focused on getting as much density as they can on this public land. So the question I ask today is, do you trust SamTrans to be a developer and a housing authority in our neighborhood? No. Do you trust SamTrans in general? So these are the kind of questions that we have.
You want to talk specifically?
I want to talk about a specific land deal. So on December 27, 2007, the district, that's SamTrans, acquired 4 acres of property located in San Carlos along the Caltrain right-of-way from the Transit Authority for a promissory note of $4.344,404. We have a question about that land deal. Was that land deal done? Did SamTrans get cash in order to buy land from themselves? Because as many of you know, SamTrans and the Transit Authority are run by one man. His name is Mike Scanlon. And Mike Scanlon is the same guy, by the way, who wants to build these buildings in our neighborhood. My question is, did Mike Scanlon find a way to get public money, that's $4.3,043,404, by selling land from one of his organizations to another one of his organizations where he was the CEO of both? So I'll repeat the questions to make sure everyone got it. In 2007, SamTrans bought a piece of land from the Transit Authority, both run by Mike Scanlon, for $4.3 million. At that time, was this a mere paper transaction, or did SamTrans get money from it? Did SamTrans get $4.3 million as part of that deal? That is my question. And we've been having a very hard time getting answers to any of these questions. Whenever we talk to SamTrans, they're unwilling to furnish us with answers. It's like talking to a wall. This is supposed to be a public organization. Public organizations are supposed to serve the public. But what's become inherently apparent in every conversation we have with them, from whether they can move their shuttles, to whether they can clean up their garbage, to whether they can turn down their noise, to whether they can lower their building that's a 55-foot building planned across the street from our 12-foot neighborhood, is, will they listen? And we've gotten a consistent lack of listening. We've gotten a consistent lack of community involvement. They feign community interest because they have a huge interest in pretending that they're working with the community. That's part of their public relations scam that I'm sure you've all been exposed to. But in the end, they have zero interest in community. They're really interested in their own budgets and manipulating their own finances, and in this case, blowing the whistle on any of their community members and any of their workers who are reporting them of any type of financial malfeasance. So thank you so much for coming out today. We think it's really important that you guys are out here, and we really hope that this investigation continues to grow. We've been blown away by the negativity that we are always faced with every time we interact with SamTrans, and the bullying. The bullying extends beyond the workplace. These people are bullies in general. They've bullied our community, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we feel like this ought to be investigated. We don't understand how the same man manages 3 different organizations and is able to negotiate deals between himself. And so we're tired of it.
Doctora Maria Rivero, as a taxpayer, I want to say that whistleblowers are the first line of defense against waste, abuse, fraud, and corruption. And as a whistleblower, I want to say that all of the agencies, these corrupt agencies like SamTrans, they all have the same playbook. When they get caught, they harass the whistleblower. And if the harassment doesn't work, then they fire them. And then they get some crony agency to do a little report on them that's a very limited audit. And suddenly, just like Richard Nixon used to say in a limited hangout, they admit to some tiny little thing, but then they say that the whistleblowers just made a mountain out of a molehill. And then, if that's not enough, they fire the whistleblower and they bury her and they make her smeared and say bad things about her. It happened to us and it's wrong. Stop workplace bullying. Thank you.
At SamTrans. Stop bullying at SamTrans. Stop bullying at SamTrans. Stop bullying at SamTrans. Stop bullying at SamTrans.
I am the employee at the SamTrans is buddy journalist to write a bias article to attack me on the San Mateo Daily Journal. So I worked for SamTrans Finance Department for over 2 years, and I was seriously harassed and bullied by the finance director and all of her direct reports for the 2 years working for this agency. So my first bully, the treasury managers, Larry Snow, under the finance director direction, used a frivolous excuse to suspend me 1 week without pay just because I filed a harassment complaint against her. So after that, I was transferred to be under supervision of another finance manager, Sheila Tiao, and she is also another bully. And she acted in concert with the finance director, Rima Lobo, to continue to bully me after I raised concern on the financial fraud that she ordered me to do. So she intimidated me and used me as scapegoat for her bad management skill and her mistake. Also during this time, I discovered the Deputy CEO, Gigi Harrington, abused her power to award many big contracts to her buddy and manipulated public funds to pay her. So within 1.5 years, her friend was paid over $4.5 million. 1.5 years, $4.5 million. That's a lot of money. This is taxpayer money. This person did not go through a fair bidding process, and she is using the district resources to run her business here in this building. And worse than that, with the support of the corrupt management, she found ways to terminate many local contractor contracts, and she brought in her friends from another state to come here to conduct business and have SamTrans pay all of these expensive travel expenses. So this is the nepotism, corruption, and waste of taxpayer money. They also spend over $800,000 of public funds to one consultant who's regularly come in to pamper the manager, so-called coaching. But what do these managers learn? They learn to find ways to harass me, or an honest worker like me, and use dirty tricks to set me up to fail until I was forced out. So I was trying to do the right thing and say the right thing, but I became their target. In NBC video, Scanlon insulted me that I'm incompetent because I did not go along with their corrupt people. Person like finance director who has no education in US can become a finance director. A front desk clerk who has no accounting background can become a senior accountant. Okay, these people would do anything to please the higher up so they can get promoted. So in Scandalized, these employees have the highest integrity and competence. This is a joke. This is clearly an incompetent and gross mismanagement. So they should be in jail for misusing public funds and abusing their power. They think they're immune to legal consequences because they're using tax dollars to fatten their attorneys. According to my records, SamTrans pay its in-house attorney an average of $3.5 million each year since 2008 to now, just to defend them.
Profitable business.
Yeah. Countering announced fiscal crisis to raise fare, but it has 17 million of slush fund for these bullies to use for their own purposes. So this is serious fraud because our tax money is being spent to benefit these bullies. HR have a zero tolerance policy on retaliation. Again, this policy is a joke because all the manager here can freely retaliate any employees who speak up their concern. I am the example. I was isolated because many employees here was afraid of associating with me because they are fearing that these bullies will retaliate them. So this is a systemic bullying issue, and I urge everyone to stand up and fight for your right. And this is all I can say. Thank you so much.
My name is Michael Stogner. I'm a resident of San Carlos. I'm a local victims advocate in San Mateo County. I just wanted to bring up, what we're talking about today are several different points, but they all pretty well connect to the same very few people in San Mateo County. And that is our district attorney, Steve Wagstaff, and his, I guess, top deputy at the time. When they tell a victim that they don't have the funds to investigate the victim's crime, that injures the victim one step further because there's no other place for the victim to go. The other thing, when they make a statement like that, it's just an absolute lie because our district attorney's office has just got his budget approved not more than 6 months ago, and he got every dime that he asked for. So missing funding in the district attorney's office. Also, for you to know, I've sent an email to the supervisors, and I've been in contact with one of the 5 supervisors, and I've told them to make sure that with the extra $64 million we just got from Measure A that just passed, that we fund our district attorney 100%, and that this particular crime should be a non-issue. And then that brings us to one other problem. Our district attorney can't possibly investigate Mike Scanlon. There is such a conflict of interest between those two gentlemen because they are personal friends. They are also both on the Service League of San Mateo County's advisory board. Mike Scanlon is the president of it, and Steve Wagstaff is a director on it. So you just can't have those two guys investigating anybody. And so that's all I'm saying is that it's a lie to the victim. And I think that this one investigation, if we have 2, I don't know how many victims we have with actual criminal act, but all of that has to be reviewed by maybe a citizens committee. Minimum, it has to go to the Attorney General of the state of California. Steve Wagstaff has to refer it out. We've just had 2 recent cases in San Mateo County. We had a very popular psychiatrist by the name of Dr. William Ayers. He was a favorite employee of San Mateo County for almost 35 years. Our district attorney should have never investigated him. They should have referred that out because of the conflict. So this is a specific case that has to be referred, and we need to keep going for all the victims. And the other thing is, we always teach people, we teach children, and I used to coach softball for a long time. We used to always tell our kids, oh, if something bad happens, report it to the proper people, and don't worry, everything's going to take care of it. What we need to say in San Mateo County is a little different. You need to say that that's good and well in other counties, but don't bother reporting it in San Mateo County. And Steve Wagstaff and also our sheriff have both recently run unopposed in elections. So the citizens don't have any idea what's really happening in San Mateo County. And this is a tough message to get out because it has so many parts to it, but any particular criminal investigation cannot possibly be done by the San Mateo County District Attorney, and I would ask that this case be sent up to the state level.
And maybe you can talk about how you found out about all this corruption. How did you discover this?
I have actually worked with probably over 13 cases over the last 13 years as a volunteer victims advocate, and that would allow me to be in courtrooms. I've assisted people with their documents. I've helped people file police reports. I've helped people stay safe during the time period they're concerned about certain people. And I have consistently seen our district attorney behave not only unethically, I believe in this case, I think that if a deputy is lying to a victim, and I think that is a crime. And so there's a couple of things here. One is I think time-wise, I think we can correct it quick enough. It was just a couple months ago that the allegations were brought. It might be, and I've asked the supervisors to go ahead and fund whatever the funding is. I'd like to know from the district attorney what the amount is. Is it 50 grand? Is it 100 grand? Is it $1 million? Because even up to $1 million, I would say the supervisors, just give it to them. They have plenty of money.
Do you think it's a money question?
Not at all. It's a question that the little person has no other place to go but follow the procedure, take it to the district attorney's office. You did the right thing. And by the way, that takes a lot of courage, Ling, so congratulations. I know from personal experience, it's not easy to go report a criminal crime against somebody, especially if it's a powerful human being. So good job.
You have to be a brave person.
Yes, you do. And then for the district attorney, I'm just as happy that he made that stupid statement about the no funding, because he's not the right person to investigate this if it is a crime.
I've worked for the civil service in San Francisco for at least 30 years because, number one, we worry about losing our jobs, most of us civil servants. But if we see something that's not right, that we're teaching our kids to be honest and fair and try to be fair with how we use our money, then city government workers should do the same. And Ling Law is very brave in standing up and trying to make it fair so that she can teach the rest of us and be a role model for all of us other civil servants to do the right thing when we see something wrong.
The PR person for this agency, Mark Simon. Mark Simon has a show called The Game. So what we're saying is, I think there is a game here at SamTrans, and I think Mark Simon and his crew are playing a game on people here at SamTrans. And what we're saying to you, Mark Simon, and the rest of the board here and the management, is the game is over as far as we're concerned. No more games at SamTrans. Because when you play games by retaliating against public employees who are whistleblowers, that's illegal. That should be prosecuted. You should not be able to retaliate against whistleblowers who are reporting potential malfeasance and illegal activity. So this game, Mark Simon, that you're playing is not going to work here. We are going to let the public know, we're going to let our elected representatives know that this is unacceptable, that it is important that public employees be protected, especially public employees who are whistleblowers. And those people who retaliate against public employees because of whistleblowing against illegal use of federal money and state and local money, that's a crime. You're not supposed to retaliate against people who report illegal activity, but that's happening. And this is part of the problem that we have in San Mateo. When somebody reports something that's illegal and they're a public employee, they're retaliated against. Now, these politicians are talking about making the public agencies, government agencies, responsible. That's a general line that they take. We want government to be responsible. We want government to be effective. Well, we have to ask and SamTrans, this agency, transit agency, how can the agency be accountable and responsible when they retaliate against whistleblowers who are trying to do their job? This is the kind of question that has to be asked. How can you be responsible to run a public agency when workers at the public agency, whose job it is to report malfeasance or problems, get retaliated against when they do? This is not healthy. It's a sick system, and we're saying that all federal money for federal projects, development projects, have to be stopped while this investigation is engaged. And we also are saying that the district attorney Wagstaff has said that there's no money to investigate fraud in San Mateo County and SamTrans, alleged fraud. Now what we're asking is, why is the district attorney Wagstaff saying there's no money to investigate fraud? He has a multi-million-dollar budget, but there's no money to investigate fraud? Who is this district attorney representing? Who is this district attorney Wagstaff? Who does he represent? Is he representing his friends? Is he representing his cronies? Is he representing his political supporters? Is that who District Attorney Wagstaff is representing? I think so, because any professional district attorney, honest district attorney, would at least do an investigation to find out if there was financial malfeasance. That's what you do. When a public employee reports financial malfeasance, you investigate. This same district attorney, I want to talk about District Attorney Wagstaff because we have some problems here in San Mateo County about bullying and whistleblowers that people should know about. There used to be a dispatcher in the city of Atherton. Her name was Anita Blick. Anita Blick. And her son was a police officer in East Palo Alto. And she slipped and fell at the police department at Atherton, and she hurt her knee. And she reported it, and she continued to work. Well, what happened is that the company, City Corporation, which was representing the city and their workers' comp, decided that she had a big claim. So what happened here in San Mateo with the District Attorney Wagstaff is they decided that the way they were going to get out of their workers' comp claim was they were going to prosecute Anita Blick, who was a grandmother, for workers' comp fraud. So this same district attorney spent thousands of dollars prosecuting Anita Blick. They accused her of not telling her doctor that she could drive to see her doctor. They prosecuted her, they put her in jail. They convicted her and put her in jail, and she was in solitary confinement for 60 days. She nearly committed suicide. She had to get a loan on her house. She lived in Portola Valley. She had to get a loan on her house, and she had to overturn it. Eventually, she won a lawsuit in a state appeals court overturning the conviction for workers' comp fraud. Now, this cost the San Mateo money, the district attorney. So the district attorney, Wagstaff, went to the Fraud Assessment Commission in Sacramento, and he said to them that I need more money to prosecute Anita Blick because Anita Blick has witnesses, police officers who are testifying for her. So they said, we need more money to prosecute Anita Blick. Well, Anita Blick's life was destroyed by the district attorney, and the conviction was overturned, but her life had been destroyed. Now, there was another case here in San Mateo we should talk about. A plumber, an injured, disabled plumber, his name is Joseph Dow. Joseph Dow was working at Lowe's hardware store, and he had a disability. His back was injured, and that's why he was working in the Lowe's department store. And he was ordered by a manager to load sacks. And he told the manager it would hurt my back. The manager said, you have to load the sacks or you're going to be fired. He loaded the sacks and hurt his back. Well, what happened was this manager at Lowe's in San Mateo County falsified and forged the workers' comp claims to say that he was not disabled, and in order to show that there was no discrimination. So Joseph Dow went to the police department, and they said, if you're going to file a claim, you have to file it with the district attorney. So then he went to the district attorney, and the district attorney, the same district attorney Wagstaff, refused to prosecute workers' comp fraud, even though there was evidence of workers' comp fraud. So in other words, if you have an injured worker, here's, do you want a flyer? Here's a flyer. Here, you want some?
I don't.
You're working?
Don't give me one.
Are you a manager?
No. Oh, it's okay. It's all right.
Public officer. Okay. Maybe she should read the leaflet. We want everyone to read the leaflet. We're not discriminatory. Everyone should read the leaflet. So anyway, in the case of Joseph Dow, Joseph Dow was a worker here in San Mateo County with his family, an injured, disabled plumber, and he, would you like to fart? Joseph Dow asked this District Attorney Wagstaff to prosecute prosecute Lowe's for workers' comp fraud. Well, lo and behold, surprise, surprise, the District Attorney Wagstaff refused to prosecute. So Joseph Dow tried to commit suicide. Tried to get suicide because he wasn't getting proper medical care. Because there was a forgery, there was a felony here of workers' comp crime, and the District Attorney refused to prosecute that. Now, I would say that those two cases, both Anita Blick and Joseph Dow, I think are examples of a double standard here. That if you're a worker, if you're a workplace, a worker who is exposing bullying in the workplace, or if you're an injured worker who sees workers' comp fraud, which is a felony, you're not going to get prosecuted. You're not going to get prosecuted. But if you're an executive who is engaged potentially in fraud and malfeasance and defrauding the public, that's a different story.
Let's stop the bullying at SamTrans.
Stop the bullying at SamTrans.
Stop the bullying at SamTrans.
Stop the bullying at SamTrans.